Okay, ready? Three, two, one.
hmm
Welcome to the Syncopator Familias podcast. I'm Greg Richter with Laura J. Axelrod. We're going to be discussing faith when you're tired, finding rest and renewal in a weary world. So, hello, Laura. Welcome. Good to see you again, as we do every day, as we are husband and wife. We're actually, the funny thing is, we're not seeing each other because we are recording this in separate rooms. So I was telling you a story there, so I ask your forgiveness. Uh, but today we're going to be talking about anything you want to say in introduction? No, I'm assuming that's a no.
No, no. It's nice to be here.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're talking today about what to do when you feel just plain tired, not physically, but spiritually and emotionally tired from everything happening in the world. And especially we're looking at this just from anybody's perspective, but from a spiritual perspective as well. Um, and really, the weariness from a lot of people today, I think, comes from just the state of things going on in the world. It's just seems like it's nonstop
It is
news.
relentless. It is
Yeah,
relentless. Yep.
news, bad news, unhappy news. It's You've got the Middle East has been a perpetual issue for years, but I mean, of course, it runs hot and cold, and it's running hot. As we're recording this, there's a peace treaty being discussed, supposedly has been made between Israel and the Palestinians, but I've seen that I'm 60. I just turned 61 years old. I've seen this over and over my whole life, and do I have any hope? No, I don't have any hope that this will be. A lot of people do, and I just see them going to be, in for a letdown. There's Russia, Ukraine, all the other hot spots in the world, and then just the divisive U.S. political climate. I mean, everybody can't we all just get along, as Rodney King once said? Well, no, we cannot. That's why he had to say it. So, anything you want to say at this
It's
point? Anything you want to add at this point?
well, now I'm depressed,
I
but
know. That's what,
well,
well, that's why
I,
we're
I,
talking.
I think it is relentless. The uncertainty. I mean, there's a lot of the economy is not doing well. I mean, it really
Right.
isn't. There's an enormous amount of job losses going on. Inflation. We just went to the store earlier this morning, and the prices are skyrocketing, really. They're not
Yeah.
coming down. I can't, as much as people would say, well, no, it's great. No, I can't deny what I see with my own eyes. And that's part of the whole feeling of uncertainty and just the relentlessness of the rage that people
Yeah.
have and the
Yeah.
anger. And it's my side and your side. And it's heartbreaking to
Yeah.
see. It's just heartbreaking. I find that I was the one who kind of suggested this topic just because for me it's been such a problem. I go to bed at night with a lot of anxiety at night. My dreams are really vivid and odd. It's really just very strong dreams where I'm somewhere else. Just the feeling that anything could turn on a dime. Like we could watch the news as you're listening to this podcast, some kind of world event could happen. Outside of my control, I have nothing I can do about it, and it could affect me personally. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm not 61, but I am older now. I have a certain track record in the world, and this is really, you know, it's really the past 15 years maybe that I feel like world events really personally affect me.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that many other people feel the same way. And I'm somebody who was in New York during 9/11. I mean, that affected me personally. So maybe it didn't start 15 years ago. Maybe it started with 9/11. I always try to figure out where certain patterns start. And it's just now it's affecting our pocketbook. It's affecting, what I can post to Facebook, things innocent questions that I'm just like, well, this is interesting. I'll get attacked. That's happened. And I'm not trying to start an argument. I'm not even, sometimes I've seen people respond to a post about cats, for instance, or something just completely not anything. They just all
So
of a
you
sudden will
so you
start
hate
joking.
dogs? So you hate
Exact.
dogs?
Well, they'll
That's
just be like,
that's the joke. That's the joke.
yeah,
Is
well,
like you
you hate
you
dogs, or it's like, well, this politician, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm not even talking about that.
right.
And then I know I sound like I'm complaining here, and I certainly don't mean to hog your time, Greg, on this.
No,
But it's just
it's our time.
it's sort of like, you know, anything is taken poorly. It's like everything is looked at in bad faith at this point. I just and it's hard because as a writer, I'm trying to communicate. I want to write for an audience. Well, I mean, do I want to write for people like this? No, no, I don't. So it's really difficult. I think when we look at pivotal points in history, the idea that well, why couldn't people see blah blah blah? Well, we're in the thick of it right now. If you look back to Abraham Lincoln's days, or you know World War I, World War II, any big point in history, there's kind of like the fog of war. I think there's the fog of historical events. Anyway,
Yeah. And this is and looking at this from a spiritual perspective, the first note I have here is looking at um this is First Kings 19:4 through 8 from the World English Bible. This is about the weariness of Elijah and then the response God gave him. He says, but he himself, Elijah, went on a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat under a juniper tree. He then requested himself that he might die and said, it is enough now, O Lord, take my life away from me, for I am not better than my fathers. He lay down under the juniper tree, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. He looked, and behold, on his head was a cake baked on the coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down. God's angel, the Lord's angel, came again a second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. He arose, ate, and drank, and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, God's mountain. Now, that's a story that's not, we may sound, if you're not familiar with it especially, but even if you are, it may sound weird and out of place in this discussion, but it's a story about someone who was relying on God and who was felt weary from in his situation. I think the encouragement there is that God meets us in our weariness, not after we've, quote, pulled it together. We don't have to get everything. It's not on us to get everything pulled together. God will take care of us. This is an example. That's a good application to our lives.
it's sort of it's interesting that you pulled this out, because I mean, you and I have talked about this where I'm just like, I shouldn't say this on your podcast. Like, oh no, the Bible.
That's right. Well, and the only reason I'm doing it is because this podcast is a podcast I began years ago, and it was on hiatus for a while, but its purpose is a spiritual purpose.
Well, I think right now, and I don't want to get off our agenda here, our
Hmm.
topic, but one of the really hard things, I know I'm not alone in this, is I do a lot of spiritual studies. I read books, and not just from Christian books either. I've studied Buddhism for a period of time, and in college took courses in I took a course in Jewish mysticism, and I right now, because of you know events in this country, the United States, I'm just like, oh no, the Bible, because I've seen
Hmm.
so many people from so many different perspectives use the Bible for their own agenda that it's just like, oh no.
Yeah. And that's something I try not to do, and
Yeah.
I think you're aware of that.
Yeah,
I try
you.
not to just use it for my own. I try to use it as my encouragement to people
Mhm.
who, whether you are currently a a Bible reader or not a Bible reader, uh, to use it. Don't let someone else's misuse of the things of God, of spiritual things, turn you away from the truth, any truth that is the truth that is there. I would say that, and that's one of the things that I'm weary with. Just speaking of weariness, I'm weary of having, this identifying myself in public as to people who are not from my same background. It's easy. You can have this Christianese when you're talking to other people of the same faith and belief system, but you can't use that. And I think a lot of people try to use that or try to beat somebody over the head with their spirituality, and they think that that's going to be something that, is going to convert you. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar, as the saying goes, and they're trying to use vinegar. You can catch. I always heard that saying, and then once I remember that time I mixed up some weed killer that was like natural weed killer, so that the dog would not be poisoned, and it had like Dawn dish detergent in it. It had
Oh God, I remember that.
but it had vinegar in there, and it took it a few days. It took it longer to kill it than the weeds around the trees and stuff than it would have if just sprayed Roundup on there. But the Roundup would have been poisonous to the dog.
Mm.
But I noticed while the 2 or 3 days I was waiting for the weeds to start drying up, I noticed there were flies all over there, and I had always taken that saying to mean you could catch flies with honey, but not with vinegar. But that's not what it says. It says you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So yeah, you see some results from people using the beating them over the head method or the vinegar method, but you're going to see a whole lot more results using the honey method.
I think that's been driving and you and I've talked about this, driving my desire to go in more of a Christian mysticism direction
Hmm.
rather than just a Bible, you know, go read the Bible and
Hmm.
that's it type of thing. Because honestly, I mean, I've just seen it misused so much, especially, because I was surrounded in Alabama by all
Hmm.
different kinds of,
Hmm.
all the time that I just saw it misused so much
Yeah.
and brought down. I mean, really brought down to a more mundane level that I think that just it didn't resonate at all. And that's kind of after a while, it's I don't know if I don't know if you hear
Uh,
the cats arguing.
I can't. We cannot. I can't hear it up here, so that
Okay.
means the
Okay,
audience
good.
can't hear it
Oh,
either.
I'm sorry. Andretti just growled at Chloe. Anyway, I lost my train of thought there, but I think it's a shame because I think if a book is spiritual or a holy book, and if it deals with eternity, matters of eternity, then it really shouldn't be made into something that's used for other people's agendas. That's all I want to
Hmm.
say on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to the next point. Rest as a command, not a luxury.
Oh.
So Jesus here, I'm going to pull out the Bible again, Matthew
Mhm.
11:28 through 30, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavily burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now that's a more famous verse than the Elijah verse that I read for most people, but this is the biblical concept of a Sabbath, not a Sabbath and trust, not it's trust, not laziness. So it's important to find ways to not just veg out for your Sabbath, whatever day you take your Sabbath on, whether you take as a Christian, you take the Lord's Day, Sunday, or you take Saturday, Saturday, or the traditional Jewish Sabbath of sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. It doesn't matter as far as I don't want to get into a debate about whether it matters, but when you, as Paul said, you decide, the Apostle Paul said, you decide yourself on these matters, but you still need to take a rest. You need to take a Sabbath. You need to take rest every day, not just on a day of Sabbath, but there are ways to unplug. You can take prayer walks. You can unplug. You can listen to music, worship music, or just any sort of music you want. Journaling, that whatever works for you. You know, journaling doesn't work for me, but as I often joke, I was given a schedule, a work schedule that uh, I found online, and part of the end of the day was journaling. I said, "Well, not be journaling," but I still kind of I sit and think. You know, I journal in my mind. I would say, you just reflect on the day.
Well, I bought you a couple journals a long time ago, and that was one of the first things I found out about you as
Yes.
as being a as being married
Uh,
to you is that well, actually you do journal. You write notes that I can never read.
yeah. Well, you can never read them, but I can read them when I first write them, and then with varying degrees, it decreases as time goes on that whether or not I can read them.
We
But
when your aunt died,
mhm.
she had the same notes. It's like some kind of you
It's
know,
a family,
it's
it's a
a family thing.
family tradition. But we do not, like I said, journaling is for a lot of people find that very comforting. Or like, and you can go back. The good thing about journaling is you can go back. And so say people who I've heard are into journaling. You can go back later, read it, and you've forgotten. Your memory
That's
isn't the
true.
same
Yep.
years later.
I have a lot
And
of journals. I have a lot of journals. There's a whole bucket of journals up there that I kept. Sometimes I'm just writing, doing creative writing or taking notes about, the day, what the day looks like. And it's useful to go back, but then I also
yeah,
realized,
I'll pull out one of your journals and read it
no,
here on the
no,
air.
no. Ha ha ha.
I'm up here in the office where the journals
Right.
are.
I
If
know.
if I can find them,
Nah.
I'll treat you all to a
Well,
journal entry.
it's really helpful to process. I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
There's Julia Cameron's book about the artist's way that recommends morning pages. It's a nice way to get out whatever's on your mind. It's just stream of consciousness. That's what Julia
Hmm.
Cameron uh, and I have found a lot of rest and a lot of calmness in doing that because whatever thoughts that are just trapped in my head or whatever feeling I have in my body, I can sort of get it out on the page, and it helps a lot to do that. And then to kind of get beyond that. My thing about what I often think about God is that and any divine connection sometimes gets hindered by feelings or a repetitive thought process in my mind or some kind of worry. And when I write it down, I can kind of get it out, maybe turn it over, and then, I can become more of a channel in that
Hmm.
way. So that's my thing for journaling, my recommendation. Of
And
course,
I highly recommend it for everyone else, but I cannot force myself to journal, even though I'm a writer. You probably gave me journals because I'm a writer, like you, and you figured, well, he journals, and I do not.
No, I gave it to you because you had all those little notes spread throughout the house that were
Oh, I see.
well, you were looking for moleskins for a while.
I
Those
was, and then
yeah,
I tried to get into it, and then I
yeah.
couldn't
So
get into it.
sometimes people, you do you listen to worship music.
Yeah,
I've
I
heard
do.
that you do that, and
I do that.
you do unplug the from well, at least the TV.
Hmm.
And that is helpful because I think the TV, especially if it's beaming those news channels,
Yeah,
or you just have it on as background noise, I swear that sometimes that just it feels like just a gloom in the room.
yeah, and
And
the,
so yeah, it really changes if you turn the TV off. I noticed it this week when we turned the TV off for the day. I mean, I was not as anxious as I was.
I wasn't either, and I'm in
Mhm.
agreement with you. But my issue is sort of, I've been in the news business for 40 years. That's what I've done for 40 years, and so I feel the need to keep up
Yeah,
with what's going on for my job. Even if
yeah.
I'm not, you have to keep up even when you're not on the job.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
then there's an anxiousness of not knowing what's going on. Like I once said, this was years ago, I was trying to find work outside of the news business, and I was unsuccessful. But one of my goals was to not know who the Vice President of the United States was. Remember that?
No, I
The
don't.
reason, oh, well,
I
I
don't
said
remember that.
I did not, and what that meant was not that I didn't care, but I wanted to be one of those people. I remembered when I was first learning journalism and growing up, there were people who didn't, you do those Jay Leno jaywalking segments on the Tonight Show, and you'd find all those people who didn't know anything, and these people would not know. Most of them, occasionally someone didn't know who the president of the United States was, but most people on that show did not know who the vice president of the United States was. So that was my goal, was to be someone who was so unconnected from current events that I just didn't know who it was. Now that's never going to happen. As long as I'm in my right mind, I will know who the vice president of the United States is, but that was symbolic of my unplugging, was that I would become someone who did not know who the vice president was.
I always felt like I had to watch the news after 9/11
Hmm.
because, and part of it too was it wasn't like I was watching the news because 9/11 was the first time I really saw that they kind of the news and what was actually happening were two different things.
Hmm.
No, and there was a lot of stuff that happened in New York after 9/11 in those first few days that the local news might have, but then the national news didn't have, or it was just a different perspective. And in the a year after, up until the 2004 Republican convention in New York, they, you know, a lot of stuff was going on, but it was like in order to find out like why did like 50 police gather at a certain place? Was there some kind of problem? You know, was there, was something bad happening there? It wouldn't be on the news. So
Right.
I would have to go to forums and discussions and things like that. And then it became like this, well, what's happening? Why doesn't anybody know what's happening? You know? Which kind of lends itself to conspiracies, to be honest with you, for a little bit. That's kind of the direction I went for, just for a little bit.
And that leads us into the next issue. That probably came over a fixation of fixing the world.
Oh,
We want to fix the world, and so and as believers, that's something we want to do. We want the world to be fixed. We don't want the world to be full of sin and hate and ugliness and violence. We want there to be peace and understanding. We want the world to be at peace. We want people to be blessed and happy. I think that's something we can at least agree on.
hmm
And
You
And
know,
so it's easy to feel guilty for not doing enough.
yeah, I was just kind of thinking about responsibility, feeling responsible for the world. And I think that's one of the problems with social media is it gives me an inflated sense of my own importance,
Yeah.
especially if you have like a bunch of people following you on social media. For me, it's but but I don't think anybody ever sees my stuff.
Mhm.
But it does, and all these people are saying, well, if you're not doing this, then you're a bad person. If you're not doing that, you're a bad person. If you're not out there, whatever.
You have to
Yeah.
whatever their agenda is, if you're not on it, if you're saying nothing
Hmm.
publicly anyway, if you're saying nothing, then you're their enemy. Even if you agree with them,
Hmm.
you're the enemy.
Hmm. Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, I just anyway. This has been going on for years and years now. It's just got to toe the line.
Yeah.
It just
Well,
that's what it is, and it's your responsibility. And there are consequences. Everybody's focused on consequences all the time, which is
well,
really interesting.
to bring this back to my Bible thumping,
Sorry.
we'll go to Micah 6:8. Micah 6:8, another well-known verse. He has shown you, O man, what is good. What does the Lord require of you but to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?
Mm.
That's all that's required. And if you're doing that, you're doing enough.
Hmm.
I mean, well, I don't mean that to mean there's nothing you should do, but you shouldn't be anxious that you're not doing that you're not solving the world's problems. And it's probably worse. I mean, this is an age-old issue, but like, as you said, in the age of social media, you feel like you can because you can say something on social media, and any place in anybody in the world where a computer is available and their government allows access to the platform that you're saying it on can see it. So basically,
That's true.
anybody, any free person with a computer can see what you said. And so now you feel like you need to say it because even if you said, like you and I may not have like millions or millions of followers, but it can still be seen. You can have zero followers and you can
Hmm.
still be seen. Somebody can just look it up, be looking up the subject you're writing about and see what you said,
That's true.
and they respond. So,
Yeah, it, two thoughts on that. One is, isn't it remarkable that that technology exists? Like we're old enough to remember when that didn't exist,
hmm
and it was like a it, just unimaginable. And then you look today about what kind of things people are sending around the world. Like you're using this, like that's what you're going to tell somebody, across the globe. That's what you're going to forward your
yeah.
message. I
hmm
mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's amazing to me that that's what people are saying.
You can yeah, you're living in an age where you could say anything and that
Yeah,
to the world. You can say anything to the world,
right.
and that's what you choose. Yeah,
That's what you're choosing.
good point.
That to me is just I sit there and I think about that sometimes. Like
Yeah.
it's just it anyway.
Well, what I have here in my notes is that we can the good way to follow this Micah verse is to just focus on the small faithful actions like caring for your neighbors, your family, your friends, showing kindness online right here.
No, no, that's not in
And
the notes, is it?
it is
Where?
it's in the notes.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
page 3.
No, my goodness.
Yeah, third page, top of the page.
Oh,
Mentoring others. Yeah, check those notes.
wow.
Yeah, well, I often put the show notes on
Yeah.
I put these notes on the show notes, so you can read that for yourself.
Now, here's the thing, okay, when you
hmm
say what's one area where we can serve with peace instead of panic, and that reminds me of the St. Francis prayer,
hmm
that a lot of different Christian faiths
hmm
ask people use. I'm not,
Yeah,
how do
right.
I don't know how to, I'm trying to word it in such a way that won't be offensive to somebody. I can't think of a
Well,
way
there's
to
no
do
way
that.
not to offend somebody.
That's
That's our
yeah.
message is
But
to don't be offended when no offense was intended.
yeah, the the whole thing I think is not to say, well, this is a terrible thing that's going on right now, don't you agree? But to put forward the idea of this is what I want to put forward in the world. Like
Hmm.
instead of saying this is a terrible thing, why can't we have peace? Why don't just put a peaceful message forward?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, next up, hope in a tired world. Are you looking at your notes? There you
I
go.
am. I
There you
am.
go. Hope in a tired world. Our scripture for this is our scripture for this section is 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18. Therefore, we don't faint, but though our outward person is decaying, yet our inward person is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is for the moment, works for us more and more exceedingly an eternal weight of glory, while we don't look for the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal.
Mm.
So that's a lot of words. That's a
It's
lot
a
of
lot of
fancy
words.
sounding words.
You know
That's
what I
that's the Apostle Paul. That's why it's so
can I
highbrow.
can I just say when you were reading that, okay, I was
Hmm.
hearing a lot of words, but the image I got in my mind was of an really older person, like a
Hmm.
just an old person, elderly, but
Hmm.
somebody who had a really strong inner core, strong spirit. You can see the kind of, you can see in their eyes that they are still, you know, that they're very beautiful and that
Hmm.
their spirit is really whole. You know, in some places they might call that like that they've got good vibes or a
Hmm.
beautiful light in their eyes, that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking, and I don't know if that goes with all these words, but that's what I was
I think
thinking.
it does. Our notes they discuss that we're supposed to discuss hope as an anchor, not an escape, believing that God is still writing history. So
Ooh.
I think that person you talked to, that's the person you saw was the person being described here.
I often hear Christians say, come quickly, Jesus," or something like that. It
Hmm.
always
Yeah.
strikes me as being an escape.
Well, one thing they're quoting here's the issue. It could be an escape because they're quoting the end of the whole Bible of the New Testament. They're quoting the end of the book of Revelation. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus, come quickly. So
Hmm.
that's the end of the Bible. So I mean, it's kind of seen as I would say that is that's not something I say myself not seriously anyway, but maybe I've said it
No,
half in jest, and
I've seen it on the internet, to be honest
yeah,
with you. I've seen it on the internet when Christians are talking about the state of the world and how terrible everything is, and all these things that people who aren't Christian are doing,
yeah,
quite frankly, or even sometimes people who are Christian, but they always say,
yeah,
"Oh, come quickly, Jesus," and I'm always like, and then I think back to our last podcast, which is, well, what if God doesn't come? You know?
yeah, yeah, and for those of you who did not hear have not heard the last podcast, we were talking about the minister in South Africa who predicted the end of the world, or he predicted the rapture, not the end of the world per se, but the rapture of the church. And he originally predicted it on Laura's birthday, and then apparently after that he regrouped and then he predicted it on my birthday,
Yep.
and which was 13 days later. And that one we were recording this 3 days after my birthday, so apparently he missed again because I not only have I not, even if we're wrong and we missed the rapture, I haven't heard of anybody else being taken up. So he's wrong still, and that's not. I do not think that is a healthy. And I don't think it's a healthy way, but I don't think it is a biblical way to look at the return of Jesus. We're not supposed to be clamoring for it, I don't think, because the New Testament actually says that why is God tarrying? Why is Jesus holding off on his return? He could have returned. They were expecting that in the original Christians in the first century were expecting it. In the New Testament writers were expecting him to return imminently. So for 2,000 years, we've been expecting him to return. Why has he not? Because the scripture itself says that God is merciful and wants as many as possible to come into the fold. If he had come back, in the year 100 or the year 200, a whole lot of us would have never even been born. So we wouldn't have had a chance because we wouldn't have even come into existence in the first place. But of all of us who are here now, I mean, that's supposed to be our point. We're supposed to be trying to win souls into the kingdom. We're supposed to be showing people God's love so that they will know Jesus. If we're Christians, we say, hey, this is the way to get in, and well, then we shouldn't be saying, "Come, Lord Jesus," because then you're leaving some people out who would have made it in. It's like you're running out. It's like you're running out of the clock's running out at the end of the football game, and you're driving toward the field goal. You're driving toward the end zone, and the clock just runs out, and that's it. The clock runs out. You can't win. Can't win now because the game's over. So,
I think it also when people say that, it's like they're not taking responsibility, you know?
well,
It's like,
yeah,
well,
I agree.
it's all messed up. I can't deal with it. And
Yeah,
that's when religion becomes an escape,
yeah.
instead of as you said, an anchor.
Weariness, but I think our takeaways on this is one, weariness is a part of being human. Two, rest is a spiritual practice.
Mm.
Three, God calls us to faithfulness, not omnipotence. And four, hope is alive because Christ is. I think that kind of sums it up. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think it's important that people these days not be put off by the Bible. I go
Yeah,
back to that because of what's happening in the world, and it can be real easy to, turn away from any sense of spirituality, any openness to spiritual concepts. So if you have a closed mind on how the God of your understanding or your heart is speaking to you in any way, because this may not be just Christians that are listening, I imagine.
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know how you
Well,
put
we're trying.
I just trying
This is
to
this is an open forum for anyone to listen. So
but
that's the
I
thing I want
think
to be.
but I mean if I think it's important not to be closed off, whether it's through fear, through feeling like everything is so chaotic that there's no sense in the world. Even if even when I don't have answers, and almost never have answers, but
Hmm.
it's sort of, just the sense of continuing to look and continuing to be open. I think that's the important thing.
Yep. Well, we will close on that, and we want to thank you all for listening, and want to thank, as always, my Patreon and coffee supporters. I want to thank Mark D, who is a paid supporter on Coffee. It's kofi.com. And you can support me there. It's called Buying Me a Coffee. So you want to buy me a coffee there, you can do a one-time gift there, or you can support on an ongoing basis, or you can become a Patreon supporter. There are various levels. You can start out at as little as $5 a month. I want to recognize a couple of longtime supporters of mine, John R. and Wade W. And they are Patreon followers as well. And so I want to thank those folks, and we'll have in the show notes how you can support me there. But just go to patreon.com, Greg Richter, my name, or kofi.com, Greg Richter, and you can find it if you don't want to look through those show notes. But we want to thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week on Syncopator Familias.